Oh wow, it's like pretty much cool. Okay. Hi everybody, thank you for coming to our panel on queer representation in video games. Yay! So this is the third year that I've done this panel. This panel is kind of the one major thing that I do because I feel it's a very important topic, especially in this particular venue, that this is the ideal place to have this conversation. So just a little bit about me. I'm the managing editor for the Fandomentals, the video game section of the site. And my co-panelist here, I will let you guys introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Currie-Martinez. Most people know me as Maverick. I'm the owner and editor of Maverick Gamers, on Twitter and Instagram. So my background, I've played semi-pro video games, was sponsored by a myriad of different people, and really just love video games, and I'm queer as fuck, so I'm here and I thought this was the right panel to be on, so welcome.
I'm Molly. I go by the EnglishSimmer or EnglishSimmer online. Mainly play The Sims, play a lot of other, thank you, fellow Simmers. Play a lot of different story-driven games as well on my channel, a lot of LGBT rep, and I recently started streaming as well over on Twitch, so I've been doing YouTube for about 5.5 years now, so
Share your sponsors.
my sponsor is Elgato. Yeah.
All right, so I was just glancing at the description that I gave for the panel. So I had sort of mentioned things like we're going to discuss what new barriers were broken this year, or new pieces of queer representation, and how much progress you've made. And you can probably tell I wrote this byline 9 months ago because not a whole lot came out this year.
Otherwise, it would be titled "What We Fucking Hate About Assassin's Creed."
Yes. All right, so I assume that most people in the room are familiar with what happened with Assassin's Creed.
And wait, before we get into that, in all fairness, so we are not going to talk to you talk at you for an hour because that's boring as shit. I don't like panels like that. We are not a panel like that. So we want you guys to make this as engaging as possible. So I will pick on you. They will back me up. I will pick on you. And I have a margarita, so as this goes more, I will pick on you.
I'll pick on you.
Awesome. I love that. Yes. So please make it engaging. If you guys have questions for us, if you have feedback on games, we would love to hear it. We are recording this, so we're going to put it up. We're going to tag it. We might have some other surprises later. But we really do want to hear from you guys. So we have our opinions about video games, and even though we're probably right about all of them, we know you guys probably have some opinions. So what we did was we put a Google document together. So I'm not sitting here just chatting with other people. But we do actually have a Google document about some stuff that we want to talk about, and really about a bunch of queer games that came out in the last year. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on. So we have 2 or 3 that we want to pick on, Assassin's Creed being the number 1. We have one that we want to pick on. But we also want to talk about other stuff, about some games that got it right and some games that are coming up. So that I know a lot of us are really excited about. The Last of Us 2.
To be fair, it wasn't all bad.
No, it was not all bad news. But I know that is a topic that is really Assassin's Creed and Cassandra and them forcing her to make a baby was. Yeah, exactly. Say it right. Right. So I will let you kick that off because I know you feel even stronger than we do about that.
Well, I mean, okay, so...
Wait, first of all, are you guys all familiar with the game? Is there anybody who has never heard of Assassin's Creed or Assassin's Creed Odyssey?
I will hold my hands up and say I have not played it, but I watched all the parts, and then obviously when Scandal came
Somebody
out,
didn't build a sim village that was like Assassin's
I
Creed.
should do that. And then just make her super gay.
Yes, oh my god. And then make the men have the babies.
She can impregnate men.
Yes!
Yeah,
That's what I'm
let's do
talking
it.
about. This is why we have this panel.
This is why The Sims is great.
Yes, that's awesome.
Let's do it.
Okay, so you said you didn't know anything about Assassin's Creed?
I
Or?
know the series. I don't know anything about what specifically happened with this one.
Okay, so you're gonna get a little bit of a background on that from Elizabeth. She's very opinionated about this one.
I'll keep it short.
Yeah.
I'll keep the explanation short because it's actually pretty easy to
Or
explain.
I will kick her under
Yeah,
the table.
I played some of the first one that had the female, but then after that I haven't. So I'm really bad at games.
That's also fair. Okay, so the issue with Assassin's Creed Odyssey in particular is that the game opened itself up to queer relationships, and this was a huge part of their main advertisement. So when they did the E3 preview, this is something that they forefronted it. They were very explicit about the fact that you could romance both men and women as either Alexios or Cassandra, which is great. It's great for both, and you don't see a lot of bisexual man representation, so that's also actually a really novel thing. So the game actually comes out, and there's some some issues with how they handled it. It's really because Assassin's Creed doesn't have an extensive dialogue system the way that, say, Mass Effect did. So the interactions are a little bit limited, but they are there and they're fun, and a lot of people enjoy them. Then the DLC came out. So if you've played Assassin's Creed a little bit, you're familiar with like the genetic lineage gimmick that drives the plot of the game. So it was the first or second DLC?
The second, I think.
Yeah, second, yeah. So the
Thank
second,
you for keeping me honest.
so the second DLC introduces a character who is a child. So basically, the love interest is always the opposite gender of you. And through the course of the DLC, you have the option to rebuke their affections, but at the end of the DLC, you are basically forced into settling down, having a baby with them, and living happily ever
So
after.
forced appropriation, whether you're, no matter how you identify in the game. And the biggest thing, as Elizabeth was talking about in the beginning, was Ubisoft didn't just say it once. They like went out of their way to make sure that you knew you could be in a relationship with whoever you wanted. And if you want to be bisexual, you can have sex with men, women. You know, in other games like Mass Effect, once you pick one line, that's kind of the line you stay with or the person you stay with. And with Assassin's Creed, they were very big on, we want you to make this game your own. We are not going to force you.
And they
very
actually,
Greek.
They even, yes, it was very Greek. Well, but that's like how they marketed it, and it's like, this is reasonably realistic for the time, and that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
So
I don't know about you, but I was actually at the E3, the Ubisoft press conference when they released it, and I mean, everybody like jumped up out of their seats when they saw Cassandra. I mean, because come on. And I mean, Alexi took by like, nope, nothing.
this was the same E3 where they officially announced that Anthem would have no romance paths. So like, this just dropped into Ubisoft's lap. Like, here's your gift of your built-in
Because EA is like, we suck right now, and we're going to continue this game, and so queers needed something, and this was the thing that we all tagged onto. There are some seats up here if you guys want to sit down. I see some open seats over there.
Right. So to wrap it up, the last part is the worst part. Is that a whole bunch of people criticize this, of course, because in a lot of press interviews they had said if you want to just be a lesbian or gay, you can be, and it's written down. It's in interviews. You can look them up. They're on Polygon. So Ubisoft said, all right, we understand, there's some criticism, we'll fix it. So what they did was they added extra dialogue options so you, the person who's role-playing this character, can make it explicitly clear that this is a non-consensual situation and you are only doing this because, yes, somebody's like...
Yeah, so please
yeah,
wince. That's
so
the
much
proper
fun.
response to that is wincing and oh god.
Because
Like,
how could you possibly miss the point harder? And the scene is so, like, I watched the scene, just like the 2-minute scene, and I was so angry I had to take a walk for like a half an hour.
trust me, and then I got the Twitter DMs.
Yeah.
All right. I've seen this.
Oh, that's right, I did.
Yes, you did.
I was like, well, I guess I know what we're talking about on the panel. Yeah. But like, so this is a big deal to me because obviously we're looking for the next Mass Effect or the next Dragon Age, and there is some question of whether or not there will be a next Dragon Age. And so it's troubling to me that this happened, that Ubisoft missed the point so hard and that they doubled down on missing the point.
I think that the way that they recovered was not recovering. I think it was, okay, we pissed off a lot of fans, and so here's a dialogue of, I'm gonna fuck you just to procreate, but I don't love you, and we're not in a relationship, and I'm still gonna fuck you. Like, that to me is that's not an apology, it's not a change, it's not a switch, like, and am I offending you with my language?
Wasn't there also something with the achievement that you got?
Yes.
It was like,
Oh yeah, and let me give you an achievement for fucking somebody you don't love.
It was
And-
the achievement was called Growing Up, which even in its own had a weird.
Yeah, exactly.
This is going to be impossible.
This is only going to be the first half of the panel, then we'll get on to really good positive things. But we wanted to address this one because I think when we announced the panel again this year, so many of the messages we got were about this game and people asking, please, love of God, talk about Assassin's Creed. So we,
Yeah.
You can't just push it under the rug.
I actually do
No.
have a question for the room because when I originally played the game, I liked parts of it, but I felt that the relationships were ultimately a little bit uncomfortable for me because the dialogue prompts are sort of things like when you're instigating the relationship, it would be things like, yes, I will help you, happy answer. no, I won't help you, jerk answer, and then explicit sexual harassment answer that immediately results in a hookup. So,
Like, I will help you, but if you bone me first.
Yes, exactly.
That was literally a response to one of the things.
So I'm curious, how do people feel about the little vignettes with the various characters? Yes, at the back.
And we have a microphone if you guys want to. I don't
Oh, yeah.
like. Feel free. It's a small room. You can like be loud, but if you want, we have a microphone up here too.
So I'm asexual, and that basically made it pretty impossible for me to like play a queer relationship.
Right.
I mean, I did it anyway because I wanted to, but it just squicked me out.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your expectation going into the game when you heard about how they were setting it up?
I mean, that's why I bought the game. Like, I was boycotting Assassin's Creed because I was like, you guys fucked up so many times. And then this felt like, oh, like we're improving, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna give people chances to like improve and do better.
Same.
And also, I love Greek mythology, so I could not. But I was expecting. I mean, I guess maybe it was unfair of me, but I mean, obviously, like a lot of people, like I love Dragon Age romance and Mass Effect romance, and they do it really well. So I was expecting a little bit more of a, I don't know, I guess they just don't know how to do dialogue trees. Like,
And that's fair too, because even Dragon Age Inquisition had a romance path that doesn't have an on-screen sex scene, and it's not even implied.
right, yeah, you can basically be ace with
And I mean, speaking of on-screen sex scene, like just like anybody who played Cassandra as a lesbian, just a woman jumping around her waist, and then all of a sudden you just see them pull up again. I mean, I want like a little bit.
It was weirdly chaste for like how overt the sexual harassment was versus the fade to black like PG-13 like lack of a sex scene was just sort of funny to me because I'm like, this game is rated M for mature. It's
So
not
were-
like this is a sensitive.
Were you upset when you sexually harassed another woman and she didn't jump around your waist?
The entire situation just made me feel awkward.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's sort of weird because there was just like so many conflicting feelings at any given point about the queer content.
Yeah. Thank you for that though. We have other hands if you guys want to grab the mic so that way
I'm
everybody
just
can
gonna
hear.
pop
Oh,
down
there
there
you
and
go.
I'm gonna.
Oh, we got long.
Okay, go ahead.
So besides the DLC, what I thought was really problematic was you have to kill the daughters of Artemis.
Yes!
Thank you.
After you romance. So there's that, which I thought was like,
I'm
okay.
gonna romance you and then.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you accidentally sleep with a cult leader because she is pretending to be a sister, like your twin.
Oh yeah.
So there's like a lot of problematic stuff in the game. I still play through it. I slept with everybody and algae.
Awesome.
The daughters of Artemis quest really left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah. I understand that.
So we have a hand back there and then one up here.
So, I personally found the romance kind of shoddy on just about everybody, but the one that really got to me was Odessa. When her father is dying and you're basically like, can I sleep with you? Can I sleep with you?
I'll totally go get those meds for you.
I'll do this for, can I sleep with you? And like you ask her about 4 times before she's finally like, okay, well now that my dad's not gonna die, let's totally go bang. Like,
Let me jump around your waist.
That's so romantic.
it kind of like incredibly distasteful. Like I'm glad they didn't make it so you had to pick just one. I romanced all the ladies, didn't matter the age. Like
Nice.
the old lady
You're my new
one,
hero. I
the
love
old
that,
lady
yes.
one, I was like, let's do it. But at the same time, it's like it felt really rushed with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know how you can drop the ball so bad and then be like, okay, well then there's the DLC, but we're gonna definitely make you straight and completely ignore your choice. Churn out that baby in the middle of a war that you're a Mystios in, like, makes total sense. And then we're just gonna backtrack and just be like, well, we're gonna change 2 dialogue options, but everything else is gonna be the same.
Well, and the interesting argument that I saw on this was everybody's like, if you know Assassin's Creed, there's the whole blood lineage, and you needed to do that, which with this one was bullshit because you had the blood from Leonidas that you needed on the tip of the spear. She did not need to procreate. This was forced. Like, and I know you feel this way, but I talked to a lot of other people who felt like the trigger warning, please, but people who felt that they were being put into a situation if they wanted to finish the game that it was non-consensual sex.
That was exactly
And
how I felt about it.
I know that's exactly how you
I'm a
felt.
pretty staunch lesbian, and yeah, I'll be honest, I felt kind of violated.
And the thing is, Cassandra's even the lore. Like, the fact that they even did an Alexios is just to kind of, personally, I think it's just to kind of pander to the men who are predominantly for this series. But like, Cassandra was already the focus. Like, what are you doing with this bloodline thing? Like, you already ruined it. Why are you continuing?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So, Debbie, I know we have. Do you want me to help with this, or you good? Or?
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, the cutscenes were all really awkward. I wanted to shed some light as to why I'm a professional voice actor for video games. We don't record video games in the same room. We're in a studio by ourselves. So you don't, and because they want to keep things under wraps, they don't even give you the other person's lines. So you're recording this like romance scene with somebody who you don't know who it is, and you haven't heard their lines, and you don't know what's going on, and that's usually why they don't have extended romance scenes, because it would be really awkward to try to pretend you're having this romance scene with somebody who's not there. So that's why a lot of cutscenes in video games feel like really weird and disjointed. It's because we literally record them separately, because they don't want anybody to know the whole plot line of the game before it goes out, because they don't trust us not to spoil it, even though we signed a million contracts.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Do
so
they
that's
really
really insightful.
Even with the NDAs, they still
Even with the
can
NDAs,
Yes.
like, and they, until recently when we went on strike, they wouldn't even tell us the name of the product that we were doing. And recently we got it written into contracts if there was gonna be a rape scene or sexual violence, that we had to know that ahead of time. But prior to 2 years ago, we got an audition script, then we came in, we can't even see the scripts ahead of time, we still can't. And then you just go into the studio and they say, give me 3 takes of this line, go. 3 takes of this line, go. And we don't get context, we don't get anything for it. And so that's why the voice acting sometimes, or especially romance, because that's weird to fake. You know, you can fake a battle, you can be like, grenade incoming, no big deal. But like, how do you know?
I think it's different when you're like, penis.
Yeah. You're like, oh, that feels so good, and you have no idea what feels so good. You know? Like, they just make you like banana cookie, or
I feel like
you know.
a grenade would feel better.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. I mean, that game has the writing problems, which made it even worse. But that's one of the reasons that a lot of times, especially romance scenes, aren't put in, because it would be awkward to film it separately.
Thank you very much for sharing that. We appreciate it. So, did anybody else have any other
I
feedback?
saw,
or-
yeah.
Yeah, that's all. And then I want somebody on this side of the room to raise their hand, because these guys are outdoing me.
Heather will pick on
There's
you.
one in the back over there that
And
I
I
just
did say I'd pick on you, and this is empty. I gave you fair warning. And I do know some of you over there, so don't think I won't pick on you.
Anyways, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to like get your feedback on what you thought of like Kira and Krasny does, like how you have to like cheat on them, or like they cheat on each other, and then
Okay,
one of them has to die.
I have some thoughts about that. So, this reminds me of the first season of Orange is the New Black, where you end up in this really convoluted situation where if just one person had told the truth, none of this would have happened. And I was wondering, because a lot of people talked really positively about the Kira romance before I got there, because I played the game like 2 hours at a time, so it took me a while to catch up to people who were able to binge it. But this was so weird. Like, it's a game in which the protagonist is like basically openly polyamorous, but apparently this was a love triangle story that we decided that we had to have in a game where it otherwise feels really tonally out of place, to be completely honest. But like, in order to be with her, you have to orchestrate the series of events that kills her boyfriend. And I guess some people can be really kind of sociopathic about that, but I'm gonna be honest, my girlfriend made me go through it, and at the end of it I was like, I am resetting this save file because I feel like a monster.
And then you get to lie to her and say that he's not dead.
Yes! Yes, that part!
No, baby, he's totally alive. That's believable.
It's terrible. So there was in the back. Thank you, audience, for being a good sport about this.
Yeah.
I also had a lot of thoughts about the game, but I also got lucky enough to hear about the whole DLC thing, and I refused to play it. So
Did you stop playing the game after you heard about that, or did you keep playing the game?
I finished the game all the way through.
Okay.
Well, what you could do before it came out,
Right.
and I started the whole like Atlantis thing, but I never finished it. I refused to do it. I was surprised though that it was universally hated by everyone. Like, I have a couple friends who play it, they're all straight, and they're like, this doesn't fit at all with the character. In addition to being like rather violating, we also hate it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting just how badly it was. And if they wanted to do the bloodline thing, there's a sibling right there.
Well,
So if they really wanted to stick with it, like just have the opposite character have a kid.
the non-consensual aspect of it is universal now, because you know it doesn't matter if you're play as a gay or a bisexual or a straight character in this game. Irregardless, it puts you in a situation where you must agree to have a baby. Like even if you're playing as Alexios, it's still another human being you're creating. Like this is a big responsibility.
It's horrifying.
And just to be forced into that is really just awkward, especially since Assassin's Creed did so much work in the previous titles, like especially like Unity, to distance itself from this genetic memory gimmick because they realized rather smartly that this was hamstringing their ability to tell a coherent story because they had to keep coming back to this very, very stupid relic of like mid-2000s. Mid-2000s.
That is enough for you.
Impressive.
You are now cut off.
It was weird, and it seemed like Ubisoft was really trying to make it more of like a hookup thing, like, oh, you're just a free-spirited, you hook up with random people, and then they botched it. So
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's fine. And if they had left it at that, I would have been okay with it, even though that's not really my thing.
It's more like The Witcher, like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe like.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
some level of casualness to it, and that's okay. Like, that's how some relationships are. A lot of people get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I actually did enjoy my time with the game before the DLC came out, but like,
Did anybody stop playing the game when they heard about the DLC?
Yeah, like completely.
Like completely?
Quite a few.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I actually have not played the DLC. I watched it and then I wanted to see what Ubisoft was going to say, but I deleted my game when I found out about it. And I stopped playing altogether. Because it offended me and bothered me so much that I just did not want to pursue anything else with the game.
yeah, my girlfriend at the time was like, no, let's stick it out a little bit longer, and then we broke up, so I didn't have to play it anymore. Yeah.
So there was another hand over there. Somebody still had a
Yes.
question. There you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, around the time that DLC came out were like the GLAAD Awards, or like the nomination.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the part I
That's
forgot.
all we were
Yeah,
talking
media,
about.
and I was so disappointed when GLAAD came out, and they were like, we're gonna nominate Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because Ubisoft says they're sorry, and we also need to encourage whatever people are doing, even if it's not perfect. So I'm giving you an opportunity now to rant about that if you want to. 'Cause
Well,
I
so
was so
here,
let down.
she's going to have a different opinion. I can tell it just by she's. So here's the thing about representation. I think GLAAD was right for nominating them because we need to be seen. Every part of the queer community needs to be seen, and unfortunately, when we're seen, sometimes there's some bad shit that we're portrayed. Barrier gays, like unfortunately, nobody always gets it right. But I think in GLAAD, recognizing them, they were doing the right thing because representation matters. Now, did Ubisoft do right by the community? I don't think they did, but I think that they wanted to. And it's not a popular opinion, but that's my opinion. I think they really wanted to. That's why they went into this story arc. They wanted to really give you the opportunity to be who you were. I don't know where it went wrong. I don't work there. I can tell you, I've talked to you for 3 hours about why I think it went that way, but it is what it is. But I think that I have to support GLAAD in that, because even in a bad story arc, I want them to talk about games where we're represented, media where we're represented. That's their whole job, is to make sure that you know where we're being represented, good and bad. So
I actually don't agree with most of your point.
see, that's
I actually do agree with most of your point, but there is a caveat to that. It's that I don't even have an objection to them nominating it per se. It's that what a year for them to start awarding these things. Because if they had done it just 2 years earlier, they would have at least caught Mass Effect Andromeda, which, various problems with that game aside, there were a lot of queer options in that game, and they were very, very in-depth, and there was a lot of like good, meaty stuff in there. So that would have been a much better thing to have on like a first list of video games that we nominate for having good queer representation. Or like even Dream Daddy would have been a good option. The issue is that this year it was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Divinity 2, Elder Scrolls Somerset, which I still am unsure if it was nominated for the content that was added in Somerset or content that was already in the game
I feel like it was
since 2014.
overall. Yeah, I feel like we've talked
Yeah,
about
it was
this.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I can't even
Sims
remember.
Mobile.
Yes, Sims.
That's right. Yes, the
Yeah.
Sims.
Sims is it left.
Oh yeah. So, but these aren't like. I think it's just because I'm bitter because they're not Mass Effect. It's because that. I mean, like obviously I'm a fan, But what those games did for the way that you tell queer stories was so monumental, and it has not, nobody else has come close to matching it or even has attempted to match it. Like, it's just sort of disheartening that this is what we have to settle for. Because for a long time we did have to settle for stuff that was
So
so
if
hard.
somebody up here, I hate to ask anybody to bring that microphone up, but would you guys mind passing it up so everybody can hear? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where's it going?
Over here from them.
Thank you.
So you bring up a really good point about how very few video games have I actually tried. Now, I don't have a lot of experience in most of the popular contexts like Mass Effect and Assassin's Creed, though I do watch it through my friends. Most of what I play is actually choices based.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say asterisk AAA game
Yeah.
market, because visual novels are huge for this.
Absolutely, and so one of my favorite series to stick with is actually Life is Strange. And so I kind of want to get, I've stuck away from Life is Strange 2 and any spoilers that I could possibly lead myself into because I want to experience it for myself. But as far as Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm goes, do you guys have an opinion on how that ties into the representation that we're getting in the community versus like some of the more popular stuff like Assassin's Creed and Mass Effect?
Molly, this is a good
I was
time
gonna
for
say.
you.
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to sit in rooms with like the creators of Life is Strange and stuff like that, and although it was like people were calling it out for being awkward and you could tell that it was written by 40-year-old Frenchmen instead of 17-year-old American females, I think they did do an incredible job. I prefer Before the Storm. That's my to Life is Strange just because of the characters. Like, I'm slightly in love with Rachel Amber, so a little bit biased on that one. But I really do think that was such like a monumental moment for representation. Like, that was one of the games alongside a really indie game, which is pretty much a walking simulator, which I hate the term, but Gone Home. I played that when I was 18, 19, and I did a Let's Play of it on my channel when I was in university and I was so quiet, and just going back and watching that and seeing my emotions in the last like few scenes, and I wasn't even out by that point, like I hadn't really accepted myself by that point, and I played that game and I was just like, wow, like that's what a game should be. And Life is Strange was kind of the same for me, and I do think I think because it was an indie, like yes, it was published under Square Enix, which are a huge publisher, but it was an indie, and I followed it all throughout development, and I really, really do feel as if they just need to start taking chances, because I feel like Life is Strange was a chance, and we also were talking about Detroit Become Human.
Has anybody here played that game?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
okay.
Very nice.
So there was LGBT rep.
Yes.
However, the only negative about it was I actually completely missed it, my first playthrough, because basically, for those of you who don't know, Detroit Become Human is about androids practically demanding their freedom. So already it ties in so well with the LGBTQ community and like representation. So I really felt like from the android point of view, like you really felt it. And then the whole representation in that was a side kind of mission. So if you found one specific android, you found out that she was trying to run away with her lover.
But you don't know that it's her lover until you make in this game it's basically you have critical choices, and if you make the wrong one, you can really go down the wrong path.
I didn't even find her because I couldn't find the blue blood.
Oh.
Like, just could not find the blue blood for the life of me, and got so agitated that I could not find this blue blood. And then Connor just kind of gave up. He was just like, oh, well, I can't find it. And so I completely missed the storyline until someone said to me, the Tracys are there.
So I had the opposite, where I found the storyline, didn't know what I was doing, and killed the Tracy. And then, can I just tell you, I was in fucking tears. My wife was like, what's wrong? Trying to explain to somebody who does not play video games, right? It was, So it was devastating because you don't know. But when you find out, I think that's why I love video games so much, is that when you can get so immersed in something when it has that kind of an emotional effect on you.
Yeah.
Like,
Even when you didn't know.
oh my god, I was like, how do I go back and undo that? Like, I don't
I think
feel
that's
them.
something
Like,
Detroit did really, really well.
they absolutely
like,
did.
My end choices were horrific.
Yeah.
I played the game so well, and then in the last scene, I just fucked it. I was just like, oh my god, everyone is gonna hate me. Because I kept everyone alive, it was all going great, and then I screwed up everyone's
Wait, so
story.
did you let the UI go in the game? So
I
there's a
mean,
part,
spoiler
if you guys have not played this, so there's a part like, loading screens when you go load into the game.
Oh, yeah,
Press the
yeah,
start menu. You have a UI who's represented by a young girl, and as you're playing, like if you don't play for like 5 days, she'll be like, "Welcome back, I've missed you," like that kind of stuff. And then she has like a quiz for you, and as you progress in the game towards the end of the game, like, and you get so involved, she basically asks you, "Can you let me go? Can I be free, or do I have to like be beholden to you?" I was like, well, fuck, I killed Tracy, I'm gonna let you go. I'm like, I don't want to cry again in a game.
Yeah,
But what did you do? Did you let her go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just felt awful, because I was just like, I've ruined all of these robots' lives. And I know they're not meant to be real people, but they feel like real people, and I've just completely screwed them all over, so just please go be happy. I'm in the same boat.
What did you guys think of that game? Those of you who played it, what did you guys think?
Loved it.
Great.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. And it was a PlayStation exclusive, so if you didn't have a PlayStation, you didn't have the opportunity to play it, unfortunately.
And now Epic have it.
Yes.
So it is coming to PC.
Yes.
Really?
It is.
Yeah, Epic have claimed it.
Yes, I have a PlayStation.
I mean,
don't play.
I have a very good reason.
You didn't know where the insert the disc
Oh,
was?
we've got a question.
You don't
That's
you
on
don't need to
Twitter,
say
that's
that
one of
to
my
a room of
favorite
yeah. Oh, I just realized it's on Twitter. Yeah, I couldn't find the power button on the PlayStation because
I had so much fun with that.
it's very small and it's not well articulated in the front. And so I was like standing in front. I set it up, I plugged it in, and I'm just
You
staring.
set yourself up. I just can't. It would be too easy.
See now I have to tell the story. So I'm standing there, I'm holding the controller, but of course the controller is dead because it's brand new. And I'm just staring at the front of it, and I'm like.
And then she very smartly tweets about it, and I'm like, I can't find the fucking on button. It's an on button.
Like I found it eventually, obviously, and I eventually found the disk drive.
Yeah, then I was like, where does the game go in? I'm like, you can't seriously be having this conversation.
So for the record,
Even I know that.
for the record,
I play The Sims.
yes, but like for the record, I build PCs and stuff, so I have no excuse for
That's
this
not
this
helping
big
your
of a
case
I
at
know,
all.
and that's what makes it funnier because I have no excuse to have had this big of a challenge that I got. No, my issue with the PlayStation 4 is that most of the games run at 30 frames a second. I have migraines, and so I have to hit a certain minimum frame rate, or else I have to limit my play sessions to like maybe 45 minutes.
So how is this about you not finding the disk drive?
Anyway.
All right. Yeah, sorry.
We're off on a tangent.
My question, what side is winning now?
Sorry.
Which side of the room?
Oh.
They still have more questions than you guys by like a couple.
Well, on this,
She's
on
like,
the
I'm not
other
listening.
space games, how do we feel about Ellen Page and Beyond Two Souls?
Oh, I love that game.
Love it.
I liked it. She's probably gonna hate it. I heard her go.
Yeah, I heard a sign.
The
I
game
like
is problematic. That's all I'm saying.
But I love that she was in the game, and I love the idea of the game and being able to separate yourself and like I love the duality of it.
Okay,
Like,
so small.
Did
thing.
you play this game?
I have played like the first half of this game.
What did you think of it?
I really loved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Haha.
But it's
Okay,
my type of
no.
game. I love Detroit as
Here's
well.
my thing. I like David Cage's work. I just don't like that he has certain problematic elements in it, and a lot of them are just things that just sort of exist in video game writing. He uses sexual violence against women a lot in his writing, and I just don't personally care for that. The actual format of the games and the immersive control systems and the way the story is told is excellent, and I would like to see more games developed like this,
Yeah.
just maybe not written by David Cage.
Okay, I think that's great.
That's
So
fair.
so let's talk about going into kind of like women in games, sexual violence in games, just violence in general. You guys fans of The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Who's looking forward to The Last of Us 2?
Yeah.
I want all
Everyone.
yes, yes.
I will turn on my PS4 for it. That's what
I will find that fucking disk drive. I I am so fucking excited for this game. Not just because I absolutely love Naughty Dog, I love a lot of the games that they play, and I love this specific franchise, but I love that they took the DLC with Ellie and continued that storyline and didn't overlook it, and really they're opening for E3. That's what, I mean, I'm sorry, I got chills, I was like, I want this game right now. Like, I watched it like a dozen times easily in the first hour. When I saw that, like, it was amazing. But prior to that, and I do want to point this out too, I don't know if you guys remember, but like a week or two, maybe a month prior to that, Naughty Dog had released a clip of the first round of gameplay. And it was basically showing one of the characters, who was a woman, getting the shit beat out of her by one of the other NPCs. I gotta tell you, like, it sickened me. It absolutely sickened me. And I mean, I love this game, I love this franchise, but you talk about violence against women in games and things like that. You can't avoid violence. I mean, if you're gonna play video games, unless you're playing, not even The Sims, because you can put them in a pool, drown them, and light them on fire. Like, I've seen some of the shit you do, like, my God. But like, unless you're playing, like, I feel like Kirby, or, you know, like, even Mario Kart, like, I mean, in some ways, like, you can't really, Flower. That's like the most non-violent, thank you for saying that. Like, you can't avoid violence, and it's going to happen, but to be a AAA studio and have the first view of your game come out where you're just beating the crap out of a woman, so many people took issue with that. And a lot of female gamers, streamers, very popular ones, even voiceover actors who were part of the game really came out and were like, whoa. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, so like if anybody wants to comment on that, has an opinion on that, I would love to hear what you guys thought of that too, because it was such a contrast of what they showed the gameplay and then showing Ellie and the girl, and I mean they just call it so wrong sometimes.
A small aside on that, which, like, as you know, we have a voice actor in the room, so you're probably familiar with this, but there's this conversation that has started about the emotional toll of things like doing mocap work for people getting shot, or, you know, people getting into fights or getting beaten, or like, and you know, you talked a little bit about, you know, doing screen work and how physically and emotionally.
Camilla Luddington said she might not play Lara Croft again because it just took so much out of her this last time.
Yeah, and I don't blame her, to be completely
So
honest.
we would love feedback. So I don't know if you guys saw that Last of Us gameplay versus what they did at E3, but I would love to hear what everybody else's opinion on that was.
I haven't seen that, but it's sort of a side tangent. Even in the first game, in Last of Us, I mean, Joel died a lot of horrific ways under my care. I was not very careful with him. I always bounce back. I was so cavalier, right? Because I hate stealth games, so I would just sort of charge in and he would die.
That is me, to a T.
But I felt a psychological shift when I had to play Ellie. And it was bad enough with when it was the zombies, but when she's being stalked by humans, I found those things incredibly uncomfortable as a player. And I actually felt like physically stressed out playing those scenes in a way that I didn't feel when I was playing Joel. And I was like, so I don't know how, like, it was, I thought it was a really strange sensation because I had never felt that in a video game before. It was like the psychological effect of a young girl being stalked by grown men was like deeply distressing to me. So I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but.
Do you feel that, like, and I ask this because I kind of feel it a little bit, but do you feel like we're a little desanitized to most video games because most of the people that you play are men? Like, it's just the past, like, 5 or so years that you really have gotten to play more female characters. Do you think that's why?
I think it's the nature of the character itself, because, like, my femme chef also died a lot under my care. I'm super careless, like, I'm a tank, I like to run at things, dumped with,
so you're very much, watch out,
yeah, I was like, here I come, I am the grenade, bitches, like, but I think it's something very specific about how vulnerable your character is, because I think even Fatal Frame 2, same thing, right? You're like a limp Japanese girl being haunted, like alone in this village, and I found that distressing as well. So I think it's the vulnerability of the character, like, because I could see even inside where you're, like, I think you're a little boy, like, any violence against children, like, it's weird because you're projecting a lot of yourself.
Are you a mom?
No, I'm not.
And I was going to ask, because I got to tell you, so I'm a mom. I have a daughter who's going to be 5 at the end of this month, who's the absolute love of my life. And violence in video games with kids never bothered me until I had a kid, and now I can't watch a movie about a kid who's been abducted. I like the video games about it, everything. You're shaking your head, you're like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I am like in tears, and that's really changed me. So that's why I was curious whether or not you had kids.
Yeah, no, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have kids because it's hard enough already, man. Like,
You overprotect video
so
life.
all together. But,
Right,
but
right.
yeah, I think it was like the way you project onto like the vulnerability of your character. Like I felt was.
Thank you for that. I think that's a really good point. I saw other hands go up.
I actually,
You guys wouldn't mind passing the mic.
a small thing. I noticed this effect the first time I played Tomb Raider, the 2013 or 14 reboot, because like those extremely gruesome death scenes. You don't usually see women killed in those super gruesome death scenes. And I became really aware that I had been very desensitized to watching men be brutalized this way, but watching Lara Croft, who was a woman who was approximately the same age as me at the time, that was actually really hard to process.
Really?
I
I had like the
yeah.
opposite effect. Like the first time my Lara Croft died, she like smashed against rocks. I was trying to maneuver like, and like literally the cutscene of her dying was like smashing against rocks and blood. I was like, that is so cool. I hadn't seen that before. Like,
I had like a weird
sadness.
No, but I had like a really strong connection to it. Like it didn't bother me. It bothered me more as the game went on. Like by the time you get to the parachute sequence and where there's like a point where you can like impale yourself on a giant tree.
I did that.
Like that actually.
I did. I was like, what happens if I hit that tree? Yeah, I wanted to see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, well, there are a variety of opinions on
I
this.
love
but,
how
like,
different you two are in your opinions.
We
This is great.
so are, but so I'm sorry,
Yes.
young lady in the maroon shirt.
So I just wanted to bring it back to what you were saying about desensitizing us to it, because like with the scene with when you have to play as Ellie in the first Last of Us, that's like after you played almost the entire game as Joel, with like she's basically your daughter. So I think if that same exact scene was played like towards the beginning, where you hadn't really established like she's basically your kid, that maybe it wouldn't have been so disturbing.
That is so interesting.
I think it was an intentional.
Yeah.
It was an intentional
Yeah.
thing because even like the director sort of talked about like I once upon a time I watched the director's commentary for the game, but
And how the games suck you in and get you so emotionally
Yeah.
involved. I think that's actually a really great point because
that's exactly what they
Yeah.
wanted you to feel.
because I don't
Even the
know that you
first
would have been
scene.
as emotionally.
The first scene you was just
Oh.
heartbreaking.
When he loses his own. Oh wait.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil it. Okay, the game's been out for several years.
Yeah.
Okay.
It came out in
Normally I'm like
2014.
fuck you and spoiler alerts, but it's like easily 5+ years since this game came out. So like literally, you're getting to know Joel is how he loses his daughter, and you go through that of him trying to save his daughter, and he loses his daughter. So
horrendous.
Yeah, it
to watch.
is.
And you're literally introduced to her, and then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh my.
You
like
play
the
as
first, you
her
play her
immediately.
first.
Yeah.
Like she's actually the first character you play before you play Joel.
It's really powerful.
It is.
And it's what made me continue the game.
Is
Because
it?
I saw my friend play it,
Yeah.
and I was like, what is this game?
Yeah.
Like, I need to play it.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Thank you for that feedback, though. I saw another hand.
Yeah,
I don't
please.
remember where. Oh, they're back corner. Sorry. Can we maybe go? Oh. You were a wonderful microphone woman.
Stop.
Thank you. Or person. I don't.
In the green?
We didn't do pronouns, by the way, and I think that's so super important.
Oh,
I
yes.
am she and her.
She and her.
She and her.
Okay, awesome.
Hi.
Hi.
I've never used a microphone before, so like, bear with me.
No, you're fine.
Go
Don't
on.
lick it. I'll tell you. That'll give you the first. That's the only thing I would not do.
So I never played The Last of Us, but I similar game series, although problematic, The Walking Dead.
Oh my God, that's on
Yeah.
yours.
So I mean, for that, similar, almost like a similar dynamic, and then kind of like, I mean, I know the series just finished, and that actually had some
Barely.
queer, yeah, barely, but that had some queer representation in it, which was great. But like I mean, there's like a lot of messed up stuff in that, and but you kind of, it was really hard for me personally playing it, where she kind of Clementine takes on that role as, and then you kind of play as her. And
Yeah.
it was really hard to play that, and
Yeah.
I mean,
If you don't mind me asking, if it's not too personal, if it is, just tell me to shut the fuck up and I'll move on. But why was it so hard for you personally?
it was just, I mean, I don't have kids, but it was just like taking care of Clementine, and
Yeah.
then like still like as the player taking care of Clementine, playing as her, and it was like, I'm so bad at choice games.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh well, I have to go back now because I just
She just lost her foot. Okay, let's go back. Yeah.
thanks video games. But yeah, so I mean, like that was just, hard to have to like watch my character suffer, and suffer and suffer and suffer.
It's The Walking Dead, so you kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah, that's the other discussion.
Yeah.
It's like you have this violence, and I know that Bury Your Gaze is awful, but then so many people are like, but it's a video game. Like you're gonna have violence and you're gonna have deaths.
Not in
and
Flower.
zombies.
You have little petals that float through the air.
See, I actually love Abzu.
Oh, Abzu! Oh my God, it was a
my
great
mental
game.
game.
Yeah, I played that
Loved
one.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have that discussion on the other hand of you know what you're getting yourself in for, but it's no excuse for them to completely fuck us over.
Hand back
There was
there.
one more and then, so, there we go.
Okay, so I'm more of an FPS person.
Destiny,
I don't-
Call of Duty,
Yes.
Fallout.
Yeah, Tom Clancy.
Yep, Rainbow
when
Six
I
Siege.
had an Xbox, I was playing Gears of War. That was like the hardest one for me because when what's his name found his wife, it was just traumatic.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
But to me, I kind of had this talk about pop culture in like movies, but also in games. My opinion on brutality, like I know again, we're talking about video games. You choose the game. You clearly buy the game and know you should at least that what you're up against. But when it comes to like sexual violence, why do we need that in video games?
Yeah.
Why do we need that shock factor?
Yeah.
Because again, it's mostly against women.
Yeah.
And to me, I get really passionate about that because it's like, I'll shoot domes every day. Like, I don't care. Like, I love that part, you know? But it's more of the, why does it have to be so personal? And so I feel like, you know, kind of with that queer representation, women representation in video games, you know, I'm really passionate about, like, we kind of need to be in it more. You know, be those designers, be those writers, be those voices that are in it who can influence it, so then we don't need to see that anymore. You know?
I agree.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely need more behind the camera, producers, like just if you are looking to get into gaming or like work on animations, anything, just try your hardest because honestly we need more of you people in this room right now to get into games.
Yeah.
And it always comes from we need more representation in the offices before those steps are made and the game is released.
And some companies are really taking steps to do that. EA has done that, Ubisoft has done that, Sony has done it somewhat. I think more in corporate and stuff, but it's that's why panels like this are so important, this kind of feedback, and for them to see a video like this online, because we will tag Naughty Dog and all of the different gaming houses, because this is so important. But I think to kind of your point with the violence in video games and where you see like triggering things like that, especially against women, I don't know if you guys, so those of you who play like more of like the military stuff like Call of Duty, Battlefield, a lot of those games have like a PTSD warning kind of at the beginning of, if you don't want the brutality of the game, there are certain scenes in some of the games that they will skip and you can opt out. I have never once seen a video game let you opt out about something that was violence against a woman or violent or sexual, like, you know, anything like that. I've never seen that. If you guys know of one, please, I would love to know which one it is, but I've never once seen that. But I have seen the brutality that you can opt out of. Does anybody know a game like that?
No.
That is sad. Because there's so many games who have that in there. There should be that option, because I don't know about you, but that is a very big trigger warning for a lot of people. And sometimes in games, yeah, you know what you're getting into if you buy a zombie game or a Call of Duty, but some games like Last of Us, yeah, I knew there were like creatures and clickers. I didn't know what the fuck they were, but I knew I was going to have to kill some stuff. But I had no idea the emotional depth or how involved that I was going to get emotionally. So, and for some games, I think something like that hits you and it comes out of the blue, where I think that it's such a big triggering point for some people that I think you should have a warning. So I think that there's a responsibility now in this day and age that AAA companies and even indie companies should have it.
Yeah.
So I think you bring up a great point.
Even
Thank
if
you.
it's not explicit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because again, in Detroit, and I keep coming back to it, but with the scene with the guy who created the androids, and you feel like you see the android that he owns, and you're just like, this just feels wrong. And it's horrible to watch. And that whole game was about like feeling for something that wasn't human.
Yeah.
And it really did hit me like completely when I played through that game.
Yeah. Even something as juvenile, and I call it juvenile just because of some of the stuff you have to do in the game, but Grand Theft Auto 5. It's like the most juvenile game, and it can be really fun and things like that, but there is actually a side mission where a guy has to videotape himself having sex with like a prostitute who's actually an underage girl. And I played this game and didn't even see that, and my 10-year-old nephew did, and I lost my mind because he thought it was hilarious, and he put it on Instagram and this and that,
Sorry, I'm
and
just like scandalized.
I
I
love.
didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, so but that is something, it absolutely does, it's still in the game. Rockstar hasn't taken it out, and I was like, after that, any like, because I have a lot of friends who have older kids who come to me who are like, hey, is this game okay for my daughter or my son? And from that point on, I was like, no, do not buy them Grand Theft. I mean, there's a lot of hard stuff in there anyway with drugs and addiction and other stuff, but yeah, I mean, stuff you just don't know, where I would love to have known that was something that was coming up, but.
Well, there's also some nuance in like what exactly we mean when we say mature content, because there is a very big gulf between like the happy, fun, go-lucky multiplayer of Black Ops, which is granted extremely violent, but like it's essentially a competitive sport at this point, versus something like BioShock Infinite, which is an extremely deep and like metaphorical and analytical narrative that has a lot of things you can tease out of it, or even things like The Last of Us that has a lot of triggering content in it. It's triggering because of the emotional connection, not just because of the violence. It's the meaning that the story gives this particular scene. So I actually am a big fan of trigger warnings. I wish more games were inclined to just have more in-depth trigger warnings, because you know you have those screens that appear before that say things, you know, like you have the epilepsy warning, which is on every game now. I think that's actually by law at this point. But it couldn't hurt for games, because I don't want to say that game studios can't tell these stories. I don't want to say that Naughty Dog can't tell an inherently
But they have a
violent story.
responsibility to tell people who are buying their games, hey, you know what? This might be a trigger for you.
Yeah, and like a game like The Last of Us 2 is a great game to have a warning like this, because it's a great story. It's beautifully told. The series is great. Naughty Dog's a great studio. However, some people may like a heads up about exactly what kind of violence they can expect to encounter in the title.
So we have about 10 minutes left. I would love to hear from you guys about what other games that you guys are seeing that have come out in the past year that have really great LGBTQIA representation, or games that are coming out that you really feel like that you're really looking forward to. So I know we said we're gonna get to you next, and then I've got one over here and two over here. Okay, I did see you too.
We saw you.
You have the mic, so you want to ask yours? Yeah.
So I have a quick question. It's an industry question. I've been in the industry for about 4 years now, and in a previous company, time and time again, we would talk about putting something like that appeals to the LGBT community in a game, but we tend to decide not to, so that we can appeal to another audience that will probably make us more money.
18 to 25 male.
Yeah, we
demographic,
all
yes.
think, I would just make it gay, I'll buy it. But that's not always the case. We might like it and it might appeal to us, but they don't always put that in. And I think that's something that a lot of game companies hold back in. It's not that, oh, I wish they put more queer in some games, and in my head as a game dev, I'm like, well, maybe they couldn't, but I want to know your opinion on making more money, like games usually are made to do, or putting queerness in it and not making as much as it.
And I know you probably have some opinions on this too.
Yes, I mean, not even just queer content, but like we were discussing the other day, it was just like every single game right now seems like it's a shooter. And we were discussing it and we were like, are there any co-op games anymore? Like I used to work in game, which is like GameStop. GameStop in the UK, and the amount of times that a kid would come up to me and be like, I'm not allowed to play online because my parents don't want me hearing bad language and talking to strangers. I'm not allowed to play shooters because obviously blood and violence and swearing. Is there anything that I can sit down and play with my friends and just enjoy? Like, and there was nothing. I couldn't think of a single game that had couch
like
co-op.
Mario or
Well, like for a PlayStation or an Xbox.
Rocket League.
Little bit
Yeah, Rocket League.
Rocket League's like the only thing.
Yeah,
I took my nephew's Grand Theft Auto away and
racing
gave him Rocket
games.
League.
We used to have like The Sims. I was fairly sure you could used to do multiplayer, and there were it's so difficult now because every game feels like it's being made to make money, which is understandable. I always feel like a business is a business. They have to make money at the end of the day, and I see that, but I don't think the wider community feels that a lot of the time.
But here's the thing about making money, and I think that this is said in not just gaming, but in media and in just the political climate right now, that you have a lot of older white men who are running these companies. Yeah. And you know, they're still marketing games mostly to that 18 to 25 male demographic. And unless it's, you know, one of those games like Dead or Alive where you can have two hot girls in bikinis, you know, fighting each other, which they think is awesome. And I'm not trying to belittle any male who plays a game. I have a ton of guy friends who I play with, but that's what they really market to, and they can't see past that. That's why I think it goes back to hiring people of color, women, people from different backgrounds, you know, from any type of sexual orientation, whether you're asexual, non-binary, gay, you know, lesbian, bisexual, it does not matter. But hire somebody who is not a straight, white, 70-year-old guy, because that's
so
what's
out of touch these days.
It
like,
is,
not everyone
so.
wants to sit down and play a violent shooter game.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone wants to play that. Like, Life is Strange blew up massively. And I know so many of my straight white male friends who are like, that game got me.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting them to choose like the queer storyline. I was expecting them to like ignore it or choose it because, oh yeah, two hot girls getting together, hell yeah. In a swimming pool in bikinis, yes. But it wasn't like that. Every Let's Play that I watched of it, everyone felt what Max and Chloe were going through. And no one just did it because they were two teenage girls getting together.
Well, and I think that kind of also gets into like another conversation which we don't have time for, which is like somebody who's actually a real gamer versus, you know, somebody who just sticks in Call of Duty to shoot somebody on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. You know what I mean? Who can actually appreciate a game and look at the different stories. But I think that is a very great point and a good question. But I think that's why we need so much more representation and diversity, and it's so important. So thank you for that.
Okay,
So you.
we have two.
Yeah, we have a couple.
You haven't asked a question yet. We'll let you ask a question.
Yeah, we've got 4 minutes left. I want to be respectful of the next panel.
So it's not really a question. It's when I think of queer content, really the only game that I can think of that I was able to play a female and choose a female partner, and if we wanted to have kids, was Fable. There were some characters who were straight, there were some characters who were bi, and there were some characters who were lesbian or gay. But like when you tried to seduce them, it would tell you they were like, "Oh, I'm just your friend." But I mean, that's society. But it wasn't like, "Oh, you're disgusting." It was like,
it was, you have a wife and don't cheat on her asshole.
right. I was gonna say, like, you have a wife in each different town. Hey, we all found out that you're not loyal to all of us, and so all of your kids just abandoned you. But it was cool that they gave us the option to, I'm a woman and I'm going to marry a woman. So I just wanted to, like, that was my game, was Fable.
Awesome.
Specifically.
No, that's a
I
great
still
game.
need to play
Yeah,
that.
you should.
I will take that.
That's a great. So thank you.
So I'm one of the devs on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and in that game, part of the character creator is you get to choose your pronouns and choose your body type and body shape. So
We
just
need
wanted to-
more pronoun choice.
Yeah.
That is one thing
That
that we
is awesome.
desperately need. Every time I meet with the Sims team, I'm like, guys, come on, gender options.
Just wanted
That
to
would be the perfect
my
game to
own
do it.
there.
What was that
That
game?
is
Sorry.
awesome. I gotta say thank you very much for that.
What was the name again?
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
I have that actually on my list. It's not one of
Look at,
those on
watch the trailer. The trailer is so good.
The trailer is really good.
Oswald?
I wanted to point out my girlfriend here because she won't speak up. She works for Jumpstart Games, and she got them to put in a third option. These are kids games, a third option for gender in their games, and she wouldn't have spoken up about that. So I wanted to.
Well done.
That's and then also EA's had a horrible past, of course, but they put in a queer and non-binary character in Apex Legends recently.
They did.
And there's problems with that, but the 18 to 25-year-old demographic has been harassing my friend Allegra, who did the voice for Bloodhound, constantly since then, saying, "Oh, well, your girlfriend must not be a lesbian because you're actually a man," and all of this, and it's been a backlash from that 18 to 25. And they put out a casting call specifically for queer actors for those parts, which made me really happy. And Allegra got it. She's bisexual. She's engaged to a girl who works for Riot, who's a lesbian, and yeah, her and her girlfriend have both been like harassed incessantly by the 18 to 25-year-old straight white men. Like, well, you're so you're not really, because Allegra can do like a manly sounding voice. Well, you must really be a man. So, and like it has been one of those things where there's been that backlash from the like straight crowd, and that like really.
But I think the more that we get more of those characters that are out, and the more that it's normalized for them, because that's normal for us.
The more we normalize
the
it,
more
the more common it will be.
And Allegra's been real great about tweeting about it. She's a strong badass woman. She doesn't care. And she's been like, no, use the right pronouns. You know, they chose a great actress because she has such a huge following. She's super popular that she's been like pushing that. Like, no, I don't care what you're saying, and pushing back at it. So
thank you for that. We have one more minute. So we have one more question.
One last thing. Destiny actually did a nod. Devram K was gay. It was just a small. It was very tiny.
I had forgotten about that.
It was very tiny, but if you sat there, because I do shit when I play video games and life goes on. Kids, I have kids and stuff. But yeah, if you sit there at his screen and thing, he'll talk about letters that he writes and like to his husband, I think.
That is true. The
And
Bungie,
especially
yeah.
the tiny, and that was when that dude was still with Activision.
Yep.
They broke up.
Yeah.
But tiny nod in a larger game, I think it was kind of interesting.
I think that the thing, if you could take away anything from this panel, I mean, number one, thank you guys so much for coming to talk, to listen to us. I mean, I can't even get my wife to sit down and listen to me for an hour. So thank you so much for joining the three of us. But I think if you take anything away, it really is that it gets better year after year. Do people get it right every year? Fuck no.
No, and there are major fuck-ups every year, but ultimately things are trending in the right direction.
They are. And that's why representation matters so much. So thank you to those of you who are devs, who are working in games, who are trying to make sure that it's so
I want to give a special shout out to Monster Prom. I don't know if Thank you. I've been looking for merch and no one's selling it.
It's so fast.
So Monster Prom is pretty much how one of my viewers actually responded to it. It's what Dream Daddy wanted to be and failed to be. So it's a dating sim, which honestly it's incredible. If you haven't played it, go out and play it. You have like 4 characters to choose from. They can have he, she, or they pronouns. And it's just a lot of fun.
And if you guys are looking for any games of the last year that actually did have LGBTQIA representation, feel free to hit me up. I do have a list that I put together before the panel. Would be happy to share it with anybody who wants it. But you guys, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.